So let's talk about scaling. This is the easy part, actually. If you've got a site like this, where a database backs your pages, and hopefully that database is a field-level database that looks something like this, then it's easy. Likely you're not writing your pages, you're editing templates. So where we have the summary, location, and start date in an event field in some database, we can just add those to the template and make sure that the markup's there. When we change the template for, say, product pages, maybe there's 5,000 of them on our site, but one template, we mark up that one template, and all of those product pages get the markup. Right? This is kind of obvious, but I think it's important to note that when you edit your templates to include this markup, you've added it to your whole site. Another thing is sitemaps. This is also kind of a scaling issue, and we'll get to that. This is where we are. We've got a database driving a site, driving the Google index, driving search results. And the Google index will find pages on our site as it can and when it can. But wouldn't it be cool if we could tell Google what pages are on our site? These are all the pages I want you to know about. Wouldn't it be also cool if we could tell it, these pages change daily, or these pages change weekly? And that's what sitemaps are about, and they've been around for a while. Essentially, you've got your database driving your sitemap, and your sitemap goes to the Google index, and then Google knows when to look for new data and where to look for new data on your site. Let's take a quick look at an example here. First off, links. Super important to have links. Sitemaps.org is where you can go for the spec that Google and other search engines use. And you can use /webmasters/tools to get a little bit more control over the sitemaps that Google sees. A typical sitemap has these properties. You've got a URL set that encapsulates everything, and then you've got URL entries. And in those URL entries, you may indicate the location, the last modified date, the change frequency, and the priority of the page. All these are really straightforward. The one that I do want to mention particularly is the priority. This is a scale from 0 to 1, and by default, it's 0.5. And they're relative to each other. So if you list all your pages at 1, you haven't really done anything. But if you tell Google, this page I want you to have a bit more priority for, say, my home page, right? Then maybe some of these product pages that are only updating monthly. And this is what the example might look like. So I've just added in the home URL of the examples I've been using so far on App Engine. I've added in a date, that it changes daily, and I've added the default priority. And of course, this is really easy to expand to include the other pages on my site as well. And maybe once I add those, I realize my home page is a 0.8, and these other pages are a 0.7, just slightly less in priority. And that slide came a little bit early. I want to introduce something really, really cool, but first let's look at the tool, which is here. So I've got a couple websites in Webmaster Tools. And I go to Site Configurations and Sitemaps. Now, in Webmaster Tools, before you can start doing anything, you need to have your site claimed. That site needs to be yours. And that's so not anybody else in the world can start telling Google about your site for you when you don't want them to. And that can be as simple as adding a little file in the root directory of your website. Google scans that and knows that you have write access to your server. Once we've done that, we can submit sitemaps. And that's what I've done here. I've gone to submit a sitemap, and I've entered in my URL, and that sitemap appears. And every time that sitemap changes, I can come back to Webmaster Tools and hit Resubmit. Just check mark next to that sitemap and hit Resubmit. That's cool. Google will know the data that I want available, and it'll know when I feel it should take a look at that data. You can do sitemaps with feeds as well, which is pretty cool. And once you start using feeds, you might start to think, wouldn't it be cool if Google could know about my data on my website as it changes? I've got a database backing a feed. That feed updates as my database changes. It would be cool if Google would know every time that happens. And that's the slide I showed you. We have another thing available to us called PubSub-Hubbub. Who here knows what PubSub-Hubbub is? A lot of you. Well, that's great. So I've got a bunch of slides that are going to be reviewed for all of you that raised your hands. We're introducing today that our sitemaps and webmaster tools will support PubSub-Hubbub. So when you put a hub in your feed for the sitemap of your site, Google will read that and subscribe to that feed and get those real-time updates. It will then know that your site and that sitemap are ready to crawl. It pretty much looks like this. You have the sitemap, you add in PubSub-Hubbub so that a fat ping just hits Google every time something happens, and then Google knows that your site is updated and can check it when it can. All right, I'm going to go through PubSub-Hubbub quickly because there were a lot of hands. Slow me down if you don't get anything. PubSub-Hubbub is a really straightforward protocol that solves a very specific problem. If you have a feed, and I want quick, timely updates about that feed, before PubSub-Hubbub, what I would do is poll that feed. Every 30 seconds or 10 seconds, I would download that feed again. I would say, has anything changed? If nothing's changed, then I don't do anything. If something has changed, maybe I bubble that up to a user-facing action. Well, the problem here is that you have lots of publishers and subscribers. Let's say 1,000 subscribers to one publisher. And all of them are asking every 30 seconds, are we there yet? Right? This would be annoying for a road trip, and it's annoying on the internet as well. Wouldn't it be cool if the publisher can just tell the subscriber, yes, we're there? And that's what PubSub-Hubbub does. It works with three things: a publisher, a subscriber, and a hub. Right, you get it? PubSub-Hub. And of course, the bub is just for fun. What will happen is the subscriber will ask the publisher, can I have your feed? The publisher will respond and include a link to their hub. If the subscriber is PubSub-Hubbub aware, it will then subscribe to that hub. And this hub will do a little bit of a dance to verify that the subscriber actually was subscribing and it wasn't an attack to overload them with data. So it'll just say, are you sure you wanted this? The subscriber will say yes. From then on, the publisher is going to send data to the hub. And it's going to do it one of two ways. Either the publisher will notify the hub directly, or the hub will continually poll the publisher in that polling method, which isn't a big deal now because now there's just one person polling, and that person can do it at a much higher frequency. And that publisher will give it the data. Once the hub has the data, it sends it to the subscriber. That's it. It just pushes out a fat ping in a post. This is your data. This is the update to this feed. So what will happen is when your site has an Atom feed and it has a link to a hub, when Google subscribes to that, every time you make a change to your database and that gets updated in your feed, that feed will push out to the hub that will then push out to Google. Right through. Pretty cool, huh? And Google will then know that it can recrawl your site. And of course, this works. PubSub-Hubbub is a great protocol that works at scale, too, so it can work with a huge number of subscribers. Let's take a look at a quick feed. This is an Atom feed with a link, which is just right up there. It's a link, a rel link to the hub. And this is actually a live feed. If I go to I made a blog. It doesn't really have anything interesting on it, except for our purposes, this link down here. Blogger, as it turns out, has an Atom feed by default that includes PubSub-Hubbub. So I can actually take this link and go to Webmaster Tools, and you see I've added in that link to that feed, and it is subscribed through PubSub. I was actually playing with this last night. I would post a new message on my blog, and then sometime later I would just see it automatically show up here. Pretty cool, huh? So that's pretty much all you need. You create a sitemap feed, and that can be in RSS, MRSS, or Atom. Use a hub, a PubSub hub, and indicate that in the feed. And then add the link in Webmaster Tools. Data in Webmaster Tools, by the way, is updated after Google crawls the site. So there may be some delay in actually updating your blog and seeing that in Webmaster Tools. Don't expect it just to pop up.